What's up, fellow adult collectors? Welcome to SeViLion Collectibles. In this video, I'll be talking about the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, Batman, and Joker figures based on the Batman Arkham Asylum video game. This is McFarlane's first time diving into the video game side of the DC Multiverse. Over the last couple of weeks or so, these figures have started popping up in various stores, most commonly the entertainment section of Walmart. Personally, I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on the packages themselves or the unboxing part, so I'll get them straight on out and then back on the spinner for another full rotation so that you can see the figures all the way around. Once these rotations have been completed, I will give a fully detailed look at each figure individually, as well as comparisons with other recent McFarlane Toys DC figures. If this is your first time landing on my channel, hi, my name is SeViL, and here I like to discuss action figures and other collectibles based on my favorite movies, TV shows, and video games. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Just real quick before I totally discard the boxes, to aid in your hunt, here's the barcode for the Joker, and here's the barcode for Batman. Now, starting with Batman, I'm going to give a good slow look up and down, both front and back. Batman looks great, and the overall visual style is most certainly pulled straight out of the video game. When not in combat, the camera angle of the Arkham games focuses on being over the shoulder, slightly behind Batman, and just looking at it from this angle reminds me of that time. The cowl of the Arkham Batman had those long pointy ears just like you see here, but unfortunately I do think this Batman also suffers from a smaller head compared to the rest of the figure. That was certainly one of the main complaints of the Detective Comics version of Batman. Admittedly, I've never actually owned that version of Batman, because by the time I had the chance to have it in my hand, I already knew that this one was coming, and I decided to wait around for it. Unfortunately, it is a bit disappointing to see that the head on this Batman is still a bit too small for the body. It's hard to say what exactly is causing these proportion issues with McFarlane Toys, but some customizers, such as my buddy Brad the DC Geek, have gone on to show that there are larger heads out there that better fit the figures. Moving down to the body though, it does look great. The main base of the sculpt is very reminiscent of the Action Comics 1000 Superman. It's a bit more on the bulky side, causing the articulation to work more like Superman's did. Primarily, such as having the single jointed elbows rather than double jointed. The belt and trunks is a soft rubber piece floating over the joints underneath, making it easier to move all that around. Beyond that, it's a solid sculpt with a lot of great detail accenting the various plates of armor, plus I love that the bat is protruding off the chest. Much like you saw with the gloves and gauntlets, the boots are heavily armored and have that same black gunmetal color to them. The bulkiness of the boots really help hide that ankle hinge underneath, so they are getting better at that sort of thing. Underneath the cape, the body does get a little less detailed, but it still has the sculpted lines accenting the different sections of the suit. Moving on to Batman's accessories, he of course comes with the typical display base and trading card, but he also has the grapple gun, a batarang, a folded batarang, and a bomb. If you want to take a quick second to read the back of the card, feel free to do so right about here. The accessories themselves look really cool and use that same black gunmetal paint as the boots and gauntlets. The batarangs are a bit softer than I really anticipated. They bend really easy, but the grapple gun and the bomb are much more solid. Both of Batman's hands are just the open grip type, so it doesn't really matter which accessory goes into which hand. Normally from here, I would go straight into the figure's articulation, but instead I'm going to go into covering the Joker, and I'll do their articulation segment at the same time. So here we go with the Joker, starting with that same up and down look of both the front and back. I don't know about y'all, but for me personally, this is the definitive look for the Joker. In all honesty, one of my favorite aspects of the Arkham games was just the very stylized, very specific look of all of the characters and that whole world. One thing I do want to point out real quick is that the white of the Joker's face is very, very bright and occasionally gets washed out depending on the angle of the picture and the video. So it tends to hide the details, but trust me, the details are there. Granted, the facial detail may not be quite as prominent as it was in the game, but still, it looks really good to me. With the bodywork detail, McFarlane Toys really knocked it out of the park though. You can practically see and feel every thread, button, and buckle that would be in the Joker suit. The overall body frame definitely shows that skinny, lanky frame the Joker would have. The torso is crafted the same way it was on the Green Arrow figure. There's not actually an abdomen underneath there. The suit itself is just a soft rubber material hiding the joints. From the waist down though, everything is still solid like you'd expect. The legs do have that same level of detail all the way down, simulating that thread look and feel. On camera here, some of the pieces are showing up as different shades of purple, but in real life I'm not seeing that. That's a bit of an odd reversal compared to how some of Hasbro's Power Rangers have turned out lately. Joker's backside does continue that same attention to detail all the way throughout, including even mixed into the joints. Other than the obvious separations, there's no spot where the detail is lacking. In fact, the wrist and ankle joints are even better hidden on Joker than they were on Batman. Now moving on to his accessories, once again you have the display base and the trading card, and if you'd like to take a second to read the back of it, now would be a good time. Along with that, he also got 2 of the Chattering Teeth accessories, one open, one closed, as well as his revolver. The gun itself is sculpted and painted very nicely and fits snugly into his right hand. Unfortunately, his left hand isn't really good for gripping anything, so he can't really hold either of the Chattering Teeth accessories. For now, I just kind of have this one balanced on his hand, but it wouldn't take much for it to fall away. Now, I'll bring Batman back so that we can go through the articulation of both figures at the same time. Most joints will work the same way on each, but I will point out the differences between the two. The heads can move up and down, but the Joker gets more range looking downward, while Batman gets more range looking upward. Of course, they both have full rotation side to side. Their shoulders can spin all the way around, but Batman's is very hindered by the way the cape falls over them. Each figure does have the butterfly joints to add a little more movement front to back, but again, Batman's cape is kind of getting in the way. Both figures do have the bicep rotation, but as I said earlier, Batman only has single jointed elbows, while the Joker has double jointed elbows. The wrists are still built using those same ball pegs, so they do offer a good range of rotation and back and forth movement. Batman's torso does have that double-ended ball joint for the abs, making it an independent piece, while the Joker has the joints hidden underneath his vest. Both ways do offer a wide range of back and forth crunch, as well as full rotation. The hips can spread out really far side to side, and also do very well front to back. The knees are double jointed, but the Joker's can fold a little better than Batman simply because it's not as bulky. And finally, the ball pegs of the ankles do offer a pretty wide range of rotation and pivot motion. Plus, you can't forget about the toe joint. Now, with all the articulation covered, let's see how they scale with other figures. By now, I'm sure you know that they are much larger than Mattel's DC Multiverse, so let's take a look at how they stack up next to other McFarlane toys. Starting with the fairly recent Wonder Woman based on 1984, then we have Green Arrow, the Action Comics 1000 Superman, and the Unchained Armor Superman. And the last McFarlane I'll compare them to is Raiden from Mortal Kombat. Speaking of Mortal Kombat though, here is Sub-Zero from Storm Collectibles, the Predator from NECA, and the Mandalorian from Hasbro. So, with all that said, it's time to run these McFarlane Toys, DC Multiverse, Batman, and Joker figures through my guidelines for a complete and fair review. These are brand new sculpts that are highly detailed and incredibly accurate to the source material. I'm going to consider the proportion issues for Batman to be in the scaling category. In fact, soon I may end up changing this card to be both scale and proportion. Unfortunately, another common problem with McFarlane Toys is balance. If it weren't for their bases, there'd be a lot of poses they could not stand in. Back on the plus side though, they do both have more than 20 points of articulation, as well as a few accessories. $20 is certainly a fair price for McFarlane Toys, and I do think these will be widely available in the coming months. Finally, I did not experience any quality control issues with either of my figures, therefore leading my final score on both to an 8 out of 10 star rating, meaning they are excellent and must-owns for all fans of these characters. Of the Batman figures available so far from McFarlane Toys, I do think this is the best one. And with this being their first attempt at the Joker, I do think it's a great start. If you already have the previous figures based on the Arkham games from other companies, you may not necessarily need to add these to them. However, if you're like me and you've never had those, these are absolutely worth adding to your shelves. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video,
Get over here!
and subscribe to SeViLion Collectibles.